Hey, Heal Squad with Maria Menounos fans. No, it's not Maria Menounos. It's Mr. Maria Menounos, sitting in for my lovely and talented wife with my good friend, producer Kelsey Alexandra Meyer.
Hey.
And Kelsey, we're here to talk about part 2 of a great interview with Sarah Baldwin. Kels, shall we begin with a quote?
I got you, Kev. So this is from our guest, Sarah Baldwin, and she says, "You make sense. Every single thing about you, everything you do, every protective response, every coping strategy is there to protect you." Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And that's the thing too. It's like, it's there to protect you, but then, as you learn more, that's a good thing in the moment.
But
right. But then it can be very preventative. And so maybe there's other ways, there's other ways of dealing with it. And then there's maybe times that you'll learn that you don't need to be protected.
Right.
In that moment. Right. So anyway, and in this part, we're going to get into all of that. And for those of you who are tuning into this one, I urge you to go back to part 1 to which will help you immensely with this part, because, and I think I said it in the first part where a lot of it was getting to be too much jargon for my ADD regular guy brain. But it does help knowing, and she definitely knows her stuff. And I was very grateful, and I really enjoyed this part as well too. So anyway, with that, let's move on to part 2 of our interview with Sarah Baldwin, and we'll be back with final thoughts.
So I just want to, if it's okay with you, I'd love to share a little bit about quickly what we want to do in sympathetic or dorsal, just for anyone listening who's not freeze dominant, just to have a couple.
Let's go over the other ones. Yeah. So there's the freeze aspect. And I want to add something. I think some people who take the quiz, especially if it's a guy, are going to be misled into thinking they don't go into these states, but they do. And thank you for this interview, because I realize I do. I just react in a different way. Yeah. But I want to really make that clear to people. But please, let's go over the other results of the quiz for other people.
Yeah. So the 2 other state, and if you're taking the quiz, what I want you to think about, if you find yourself saying, "Oh, I don't experience these all of the time or predominantly," I want you to ask yourself, well, which of these, what you might just think of as negative experiences or negative responses, even if it's not my norm, which one do I know the most? Like, which one do I have familiarization with? So if we're in sympathetic, this is our state, again, of mobilization. Think of it like I'm getting away from a lion. Now, this is very important to understand about sympathetic. Sympathetic, or if every state is like its own country. So if I said to you, I'm in China, like, Kev, I went on a trip to China, you wouldn't just be like, great. You'd probably say, where in China? And I'm like, I don't know. I just went to China. That would be very weird. But when it comes to our nervous system, because people aren't taught the details of this. I teach, the reason why I create a map with folks is because we need to know what the state is actually like. I use a number system from 1 to 10. 1 is least extreme experience, 10 is most. So if I'm at a 1 to a 5 in sympathetic, that's like the lion is, let's say it's 300 yards to 500 yards away. It's pretty far away. So a 1 to a 5 is least extreme activation. So this is, I feel worried, just unsettled, kind of annoyed, agitated. I feel like I can't relax. I feel a little nervous or a little frustrated or maybe a little anxious. That's all like a 1 through 5. So imagine the lion's pretty far away. So if we were running from a lion, Kevin, and I said to you, okay, hey, let's stop for a minute and let's just quickly notice our breath, and let's just quickly for 30 seconds do just a little meditation so that we can be focused on the path ahead. You might say to me, you'd be nervous, but you'd say, okay, let's do it. If I said, let's say the lion is 20 feet 50 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet away. And I said to you, so this is a 5 to a 10 in intensity, where we experience more intense anxiety, more intense panic, more intense anger, more intense frustration. If I said to you, and line's 20 feet away, and I said, hey, Kevin, I read online that meditation is really great. Let's meditate. And I'm like, I'm going to sit down and meditate. You'd be like, Sarah's lost her total mind. I'm getting out of here. Sarah will be eating for lunch and I will probably get away. We'll have a nice memorial for her. I'm not sure what happened. She fully, lost it. So the reason I share that, it makes a lot of sense with the analogy, right? But what happens is we have these catch-all things that people are told will regulate you. So when you are at a more intense sympathetic, you do not want to sit still. Meditating is not going to help you. If you close your eyes and sit, you're going to notice you get more intensely anxious. And people are like, no, sit and meditate. It's so good. And your system's like, why are you sitting? There's a lion. This is terrible.
Yeah.
So when you're at what is more intense sympathetic, I don't want you to sit still. I don't do individual work anymore. When I was doing it, if someone was at a 5 to a 10, we would not sit in my office. We'd go for a walk. We have to move. It's not helpful for you to sit. So if you're at a 5 to a 10, do not meditate sitting. Do not make yourself stay seated. You need to move the energy through. So, and more intensity of movement is going to be necessary if we're at a 5 to a 10. So moving your body in any way you can through exercise is going to be really helpful when you're here. Completing tasks, as we talked about, is going to be helpful when we're here. Seems simple, but it's not. Letting your body shake in a way that it wants to, not manipulating. Like if I said, oh, I should shake, I might just manipulate my body because I think this is what shaking looks like.
Allow it. No, I've been there. Allow it. Yeah.
Let it move. And really let it continue to move until it doesn't want to anymore. That is releasing the sympathetic charge, so that you're showing your nervous system this is over. Swaying, dancing, something called tapping is really helpful. I can walk through a tapping exercise. That's tapping on meridian lines in our body, which brings us into regulation. A walking meditation can be helpful when we're here, but must be walking.
Moving.
We can listen to music that attunes with our nervous system. That's very helpful.
What kind of music attunes to our nervous system?
Yeah. So the cool thing is, so remember I talked about Bob Ross, we pick up on each other's nervous systems, but we can through music too. So if I'm in a sympathetic state, I'm not going to, if I want to listen to music that attunes with that, if I put on a really slow, Ray LaMontagne music, slow, moody music, that's not going to feel right. My system's in this amped up place. I don't want to listen to this mellow music. So I want to listen to something that mirrors that more energized place. And through that mirroring, it can help me then come to regulation. It's why when I'm sad, I want to listen to sad music. I want to listen to something that attunes with me. So it makes me feel seen, known, and heard, because the musician that was playing that song had to tap into that autonomic state. So it makes me feel seen, understood. And when that occurs, it can bring me to regulation. So anything that feels like it attunes with what you're feeling is very helpful. If you are at a 1 to a 5, which is less intense sympathetic, then doing something like sitting and meditating can be very helpful because the lion's further away. Or some gentle swaying can be really helpful, or humming. It can be super helpful to tap on our chest. And if you think about and sway, if you think about what we do, this is so inherently biological to who we are. If I see a baby that's in distress, what's my inclination? Pick them up, put them on my chest, and do this and sway. The reason why, because our sympathetic nervous system lives here, upper chest and upper back. So if I tap on my upper chest and upper back, I'm tapping on the sympathetic system, letting it know that I'm safe. So this is really, really regulating. Sway and tap on the upper chest and upper back or freeze, sympathetic or freeze.
And is that why we rock them too? I mean, you exactly. Kind of get in, even with my dogs, I'll get them into that little.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So that's what I mean by this is inherent in us. We know how to do this. It's bringing ourselves back to what we know how to do. And that brings regulation. And we want to do this for ourselves. So that's very helpful. Another tool that's very helpful in sympathetic or freeze is something that I call a soft eye gaze. So when we're in sympathetic or freeze, the muscles around our eyes constrict, so tighten, and our vision becomes laser focused. Now, why would we want that to happen? Well, if I am running from a lion, do I need to take in like, oh, the beautiful water buffalo? Look at that tree blossoming this spring. Beautiful. No, I don't need to take in any of that. I only need to take in the path ahead of me. All I need to do is take in the path ahead. So when we're in freeze and sympathetic, not only will be our focus be tunneled, meaning I can't think about anything else but that threat or the person who's mad at me or whatever, but also our physical eyes will be laser focused and the muscles will be tightened. So if we can soften the muscles around our eyes and soften our gaze, it cues up to our brain that the coast is actually clear. There is no threat. So a very simple way that we can do this, I know people aren't going to be probably all seeing me, so I'll try to describe what I'm about to do, is we want to take our vision from being laser focused to panoramic, meaning soften our gaze so that I'm taking in the entirety of the room around me all at the same time. And a simple way to do that is if you focus on one thing in front of you, like a point on a dot on the wall or a color or whatever, but focus on a specific point. And then if you put your arms out parallel to the sides and you turn your hand in, so turn your hand inward towards yourself so that your hand is both hands are turned in like there's a right angle. Your arms are straight, your hands turned in. So arms straight out to the side. Hands turned in like this, and look straight ahead at the point on a wall for a second, one point. And what I want you to do is start wiggling your fingers, but keep your attention focused on the point on the wall. Wiggle your fingers and move your arms forward just until you can see your fingers wiggling on both sides. So when you can see your fingers wiggling on both sides, but continue to look straight at the point, you've now softened your vision and you are taking a fishbowl view of the room. So you can put your hands down, keep your vision soft. And then what I invite people to do is notice 5 things on your right and 5 things on your left while you're still having your vision soft, taking in the whole room. The things on each side will be soft focused. They're not going to be really crystal clear. That's how it's supposed to be. And after you do that, and then blink and come back, you've softened your gaze, which will help get rid of some of that sympathetic energy when you're in sympathetic or freeze. So this is what somatic therapeutic tools look like. They'll often see it's very different from what we're doing in talk therapy. It's signaling to our bodies, hey, the coast is actually clear, we're safe. And that tool I just gave you is something you do not want to do when you're in dorsal. If I'm shut down, my system, so now to go into dorsal, if I'm shut down, my system is going into hibernation for all intensive purposes. And that means I'm beginning to leave my body. So when we're here, our vision's not tunnel focused, it's soft. We actually will stop seeing 20/20. Everything will be softened. Sounds, this is important to name. In sympathetic, everything's going to sound louder. This is why when you're in your argument with someone, but you're in sympathetic and you're like, stop yelling. And they're like, I'm not yelling. But it sounds like they're yelling because I'm hearing everything louder.
Is that why you can get like massively overstimulated too?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's
so when
crazy.
you're in sympathetic or freeze, lights are going to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
Sounds, everything's like, it's
Everything.
overstimulating. Because it's an adaptive response. If I'm running from a lion, I need to hear everything. So our hearing increases as well as our ability to see. Now, dorsal is different. Dorsal, it feels like I'm like in a weird dream. Sometimes I describe it to people as can feel like you took a sleeping pill, but you're awake. Like I'm just kind of out of it. And it's just weird. Like everything feels like kind of like a dream or something. So that's a mild dorsal. But think of it again like a bear in hibernation. So if I'm leaving my body, so if my vision is already soft, I don't want to soften it further because if I do that, I'm going to go deeper into dorsal. Dorsal, I want you to think of sympathetics like Times Square in New York or Tokyo. It's a lot, so much. Dorsal is like outer space, like I'm drifting out into nothingness. That's what dorsal is like. So we don't want to soften our gaze. Not only that, another thing you don't want to do in dorsal is I highly recommend not doing a closed eye meditation. If you close your eyes while in dorsal, it's going to often increase the dorsal experience or the outer space experience. So I used to dissociate a lot. And I thought meditating was cool because I'm going to meditate. And I'd close my eyes and I'd come back and I'd be like, I don't know if 7 years just went by or 3 minutes. That's because I was dissociating, like I was leaving my body. We don't want that to happen. That just increases the dorsal.
I feel like with this last phase though, because I've seen some people in it.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's hard to be aware.
Yeah.
Like I've seen people just turn into zombies.
Yes.
Just can't speak.
That's right.
Kelsey, I don't know if you were with me at the time. Someone who worked for me hit this place. And I don't think this person would have the awareness to say, I'm going to do the soft eye gaze or the sway or so this is the scary one, this seems like it's the scary one. I mean, this freeze, and I get freeze and I get the other one, but shut down. Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
And
it's the most intense.
Right. It's so, what do you do when you're friends, you want to support someone in that state?
Yeah. So a couple of things. The first thing I just want to name is the whole reason that, I do what I do is because the whole goal is that we are prepping or working on our system so much that I know at any given moment. I help people become experts. So that person you're talking about or friend, the goal would be that every moment they know where they are. Because we're always somewhere in our nervous system. So I can tell you, I'm at a 2 dorsal right now, or I'm at a 4 dorsal. That's the goal. And then I have practiced so much that I can actually pull upon the regulating tool. That's the reason we want to invest in doing this kind of work. Now, it's the answer to have a full, happy life, but there's a practical process. It's not elusive. Now, if we have someone who's not doing their work, and this is a place they're going, the most important thing that and we can't make anyone heal or help them heal, of course. They have to choose to, but we want to help them to show them that they're safe because their nervous system doesn't think they're safe. And so a really simple thing, this is a more extreme example. I was married for 10 years. I'm not married anymore, but during my marriage, I was processing a lot of trauma, sexual abuse, lots and lots of things. And something that was really supportive for him to say to me was, to my threat detector at the time, was, hey, it's me. It's me. It's not that person you think it is. It's me. Or to take my hand in a gentle way. But how could he show me that it's him, a safe person, not someone who is dangerous? That's just an example. But other things that we can do is do regulating with them. Like, hey, why don't we stop having this conversation? Let's go outside. And a tool I was just about to give you is something called orienting. Orienting is using all our external environment to show our systems that we are here. We're not somewhere else, we're here. Because here, the more that I do trauma work, the more clear it is time is not linear. We're traveling time all the time. If anyone is dysregulated, but you're actually safe, like meaning you're safe in this present moment, but you're dysregulated, that is a clue you've traveled time to the past. And you're no longer in 2023. You're back in like Kelsey, when you describe freeze, that means you're not in 2023. If you're safe, you're back in 1995 or somewhere else. Dang. So this person, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that friend of yours, he or she or they weren't with you anymore. They might have been back in that really dangerous environment in their home where they were all alone and no one saw them and they had to raise themselves. They were so deeply neglected and now they're there. They're not here. So something we need to do is show our nervous systems that we are here. Can't tell it we're here, we can show it. So orienting is using all the senses we have access to bring ourselves into our present space. And so something I like to do is that I find so helpful with nervous system regulation is begin to see your nervous system as separate from you. What I mean by that is it's your most reliable friend. It has never let you down. It loves you so much that it is so strong. It can work for decades at a time without stopping. Every organ in your body will give up energy, your liver, your gallbladder, your kidneys, all for your survival. And it will continue on, and it will say, I love you. I am never stopping. Chronic illness comes from long stays in dysregulation because our immune system is compromised. And so anyway, that's for another conversation. But so When that occurs, I'm no longer here. I am back there. So when I can see my nervous system is separate from me, this thing protecting me, if I can say, whoa, I'm in dorsal, nervous system, hey, there you are. You don't think I'm safe. Or freeze or sympathetic. You don't think I'm safe. Let me show you that this moment is safe. It's almost like I'm taking my nervous system's hand. And then what I would want to do is I call it 5, 5, and 5. So this is a common tool, but I want you to see 5 things in your space. But think of it like I'm holding my nervous system's hand and I'm like, hey, nervous system, you think we're back in that really dangerous place or home or school or whatever, or relationship? No, we're here. Okay, let's look at 5 things that tell you that we are in 2023 in this safe space. So what's very important with this is the 5 things you see, you must see details. If I have a white wall and I just say, oh, that's white, I'm not actually present to it. But if I said, like, there's a book on my bookshelf that's red, but I would say this looks like Campbell's soup red. So I had to be way more present to come up with that color. So see it, or a detail on a leaf on a plant or whatever. So detail, see 5 things. Then I want you to smell 5 things. I always have on my desk something that has a strong smell, like peppermint oil, or something that can be more pungent. Smell 5 things. So that could be the detergent, smell of detergent on your shirt. It could be a candle. It could be a book. Open up a book and smell it, and really have the intention of saying, nervous system, we're here. So smell 5 things, touch 5 things. Pick up 5 things and feel what it feels like this pen cap is cold. And I want you to be present to feeling that, or something that's pokey, and really feel it, showing your nervous system, we are here. So I want for all listeners to know, this will not work if you rush this, because then you're not really getting present. Like, oh, I'm feeling this pen, whatever, moving on to this crystal. You got to really feel it.
Yeah, if you're in the GSD, get shit done mode, yes,
yeah.
I could definitely do. Yeah, no.
You're like, oh, I'll do this 5 things. It's not going to help.
Did it, done, next. Yeah.
You got to really you could, as you're picking up the dog poop, smell it. I don't recommend that, but it's always possible. Anyway, so smell 5 things, touch 5 things, see 5 things, and hear 5 things. And hear 5 things in each ear. That's a challenge on purpose. So hear 5 things in your right and 5 in your left. And after you do that, you would have successfully brought your nervous system more into presence. This tool you can use in any state, sympathetic, dorsal, or freeze. Now in dorsal, remember, we aren't in our body. So another thing that I like to do is anything that is sensory that's going to get you back into your body. So something like hold an ice cube. It's intense. It'll help you get in your body. Run your hands under warm water. Go feel the sun on your face. Put your feet in grass. All of those things will support you to come back into your body. And with breathing, now, so I talked about breathing before in freeze and sympathetic. The way we want to breathe is that 4-7-8 breath. In dorsal, we do not want to do that. If you do that, when you're in dorsal, you're going to go further into outer space. So instead in dorsal, I do a 2-part rapid breath. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the bear out of hibernation. So only 2-part looks like this. Equal in and out through your mouth, only twice, and rest and notice. Because what that does is it brings energy into your body. When we're in dorsal, we've got no energy. So we're trying to bring small amounts of energy. It's important to name, if you try to bring too much energy into your body when you're in dorsal, it's like going from outer space to Times Square. So if you went from outer space to Times Square, you'd be like, it's too much. And you go back to outer space. So instead, small amounts of energy, gentle stretching, as I mentioned, swaying, humming. Tapping is really, we didn't go through the meridian lines, but there's different tapping sequence where we tap on parts of our body.
I think you can look those. I mean, there's a lot available for that too.
Yeah. And you don't need to do a mantra with those. The point of tapping when we're regulating our nervous system is just tapping on meridian lines. It brings regulation.
Have you thought a couple of things for our parents out there?
Yeah.
Anything they can do, first of all, to help avoid more traumas to come to their children? And then let's talk about when they do.
Yeah. So a couple of things. I've worked with, I don't know, thousands of parents at this point, probably. And something I hear from parents first is before like signing up for a program or something is there's apprehension about investing that in themselves in that way, whether it's the resources or even the time, right? Like I can't take this time up, like I need to be with my kids and I can't take this time for me. And what I want all the parents listening to know is that nervous systems read nervous systems. We have something called mirror neurons. Nervous systems read each other. For example, the three of us live in Los Angeles, but when you're in traffic and there's that person that's like so angry and way angrier than maybe they should be about traffic, which really isn't about traffic. It's about maybe their parent who berated them. Anyway, being around them, we might notice like, whoa, I start to feel dysregulated. And that's because nervous systems pick up on each other. So if I'm a parent, the best gift that you can give your children is a regulated nervous system. Because their nervous system needs yours. It needs yours. So if my child is struggling, what I need to focus on is I need to get regulated. Because if I'm a regulated human being, then when they come to me, I will be able to bring regulation, give them regulation. So it's that I just want to name for parents, because really good parents can feel like they shouldn't spend, like I should just sacrifice for my kid and I can't spend this time on myself. But in fact, that's the very best thing you could do for your kids. And if you're saying, well, oh my gosh, I've been anxious for my kids' whole life and now they're 14 and I'm still anxious. Are you saying that I've messed them up? No, I'm not. And I'm also saying it's not too late. It's never too late. So investing in our own nervous system regulation is most important. And that means that and another component of this is what is your life conducive of regulation? For parents, I want you to think about that. And if it is not, like a lot of parents aren't, how can I make space in my day to have moments of regulation for me? Because if you don't do that, then what begins to occur is I snap at my kids. I get really frustrated with them and so on and so forth.
And even if you don't, like you said, they're going to feel your energy.
That's right.
Of all your anxiety, your stress, your frustrations, they're going to feel it anyway.
And it affects their nervous system. Yeah. So the imperative nature of I need to carve out time in my day, that is not selfish for me to say, you know what, after work, mom needs a half hour. And we carve that in somehow, whether it's the sitter stays longer or your partner has the kids for that amount of time or whatever you need to do. If your nervous system needs that amount of time for you to be more regulated, best thing that you can give your kids. If you notice, if you're with your kids and their dysregulation is dysregulating you, but by the way, this is not just for kids, this is for any human being who's in a relationship, so married people, partner people, people with other humans in your life. 101 of relational dynamics and nervous system is if both people are dysregulated, we cannot resolve what is happening from that place of dysregulation. We can't hear each other. We are seeing one another as actually as enemies in a lot of ways, meaning my threat detector, like let's say my partner gives me some constructive criticism and my threat detector says, oh, that reminds me of not being enough or always being told I wasn't enough. And in a millisecond, I have traveled back to being 8 years old. And now I don't see my partner. I see that parent who, when I got an A- said, yeah, but you didn't get an A+ and you're not really good enough and blah, blah, blah. And so now I am 8 literally in my body, and I am protecting against a parent. I don't even see my partner anymore. And guess what they see? They see their caregiver whom shut down from them and pulled away and withheld love, even though that's not what I'm doing. That's what they see. And so now we're combating each other. So if both people are dysregulated, what we have to do is say we have time out. We have to pause. We can't fix this from this place. We have to both go regulate. And when we're regulated, let's come back and repair. So let's say I'm a parent and I'm getting frustrated with my kid as I'm making dinner. I might have to say, hey, mom needs to go take 3 minutes. And they start to get used to this. Mom goes to the bathroom for 3 minutes after when she's feeling like it's too much. And I do something to regulate. And then I can come out and handle it as adult me in a different way. So that's a very important key component. And engaging in this work in general is important for everybody, but of course, really important for parents to do too.
I think even teaching the kids some of these, when you see in the kids are having these states, just start teaching these practices and then train their nervous systems.
That's
like
right.
you were saying, like that's, And I've seen some parents do it. Like
Yeah.
they pull them aside and be like, breathe. You remember we talked about this? And,
That's right.
you know, stuff someone like me would make fun of a few years back. And now I'm like, oh my God.
My mom used to do that to me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. She would rub her finger down my nose and be like, breathe. breathe. Oh yeah. All the time. Because she was very calm. And I was like,
Amazing.
yeah. But it helped a lot. Or we had like words, you know, where she'd be like, remember our word, like take a moment. But it did help.
Yeah.
So much.
I love that.
It's something, so I call our nervous system the autonomic highway, and I create a map of the highway, like a literal highway. And we fill it in. What are the thoughts, sensations, feelings, and experiences I have in each state? So when I pick up the map, I know where I am. And so when I work with parents, they all create maps with their kids. Kids are so good at this. So they work with these. Can you, like, I can't imagine what a life it would be if at 9 years old, I knew what was happening in my nervous system. And then I had a toolbox of tools that I could do to regulate. And in minutes, I could feel better. So if you start life that way, just imagine how different it would be. I mean, it's extraordinary. And my hope is that we can get this in every school, because it would change kids' lives, you know?
Need it. Well, I need it now. I think now more than ever, we're just exposed to way too much. And and I feel like there's such a change going on. We had someone on yesterday. We were talking about how this is the biggest change that's taken place in mankind in the last 5,000 years. Like what's going on now, even in the universe, not just in terms of day to day.
I agree.
But right. So that's got to be a lot on everybody.
So much. And this, it really comes down to the foundation of it all, of all healing really, is our nervous system. It affects our relationships, how we attach. It affects our ability to set boundaries, our ability to know our purpose, our ability to step towards it, be seen, be heard, be known. Everything is our thoughts. We didn't get into that, but to just briefly say, our state creates our story. That's what neuroscience and polyvagal theory tells.
Oh, please, no, you can't just leave me on that note. Our states create our story. What?
So important. So
to me, Sarah.
This is a very important concept to understand. So every state, so remember we have 4 primary states. So we've got ventral, regulation, sympathetic, freeze, and dorsal. So here's how an analogy that I use here to describe that, or first I'll explain it and then use the analogy. So the state that we are in is going to be directly indicative of the kind of thoughts we have, which means they're going to be different in sympathetic, dorsal, and freeze. The thoughts are going to be, and I'm going to give you an example, but widely different. Now, here's the job of our thoughts. It is to keep us in that state of dysregulation. Our nervous systems don't want to come out of sympathetic if they think there's danger. So a simple analogy I use to explain this to folks is, imagine that each state has a lawyer. This lawyer is a well-versed lawyer. They went to Oxford. They've been in practice for 40 years. They could convince you that a unicorn is real and that you're an alien from, another place. Maybe you are. I don't know. Anyway, so they can convince you of anything. Every state has its own lawyer, and their job is to argue to you why you need to stay in that state of dysregulation. Now, the way that, mindset work became kind of a thing for a while, the way that mindset work works, and the reason why it doesn't work when you're dysregulated, is because the concept of that is, imagine that I'm a jury member. So like I have to go into jury duty. I am clearly not a lawyer. Imagine if I was sitting behind a jury stand and I was trying to argue to this well-versed lawyer about how they were wrong. No one would bet on me winning. But that's what we do with mindset work. Like we have a thought that I'll never amount to anything. And I'm the jury member, and the lawyer's saying you'll never amount to anything. And I'm the jury member that's like, well, maybe you will, because everybody can amount to something. And then what would happen? The lawyer would bulldoze me. So that's how it works. Our state creates our story. Now, in sympathetic, imagine that's like we're in the state of sympathetic. That's like being in a sympathetic courtroom. It's intense. There's loud lights. Maybe there's strobe lights. It's intense. I'm the jury member sitting behind the jury stand. And this sympathetic lawyer walks in and they are going to do whatever it takes to keep me in that state. So they're going to say things that are all about how we must now, like there's a ticking time bomb and you must do something. So they're going to tell me the reasons why my partner is going to cheat on me and I can't really trust them. And if they're 10 minutes late, that means that they're doing this thing. And you really need to look at their email, even though I know that's not something you normally do. But this is the only way you're going to prevent against being hurt in the same way again. So you better do that, because if you don't do it, you're not going to be okay. No, you shouldn't give away this amount of money to the people that work for you or to this charity, because there are people who like, remember what happened to your family members and they had to file for bankruptcy, and that's going to happen to you. So you better be really careful about blah, 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 blah. And they're going to go, really intense. And they're going to all be about how you have to do something now. And when I'm working with folks, I invite them to get a visual of their lawyer in each state. The reason why I do that is not to be silly and weird or childlike, because when we can differentiate from our thoughts, actually see it as separate from us, it loosens its grip or the charge it has. When I did this, just to give an example, it could be anything. You think about, like, what does your sympathetic lawyer look like? The one that's always chattering. What came to me, this is very funny. I was like, what does my sympathetic lawyer look like when I did this many years ago? And it was Hillary Clinton in the Britney Spears red onesie pleather suit. I don't know if you know what that is, but I was like, this is it.
Of course.
That's my sympathetic lawyer. Which also
That's funny.
is disarming. So anyway, I have people get a visual, because it automatically stops us from listening. When we can ask ourselves, who's talking to me right now? Because it's not you, you're the one hearing the thoughts. So I'm going to give you an example from a client of what their thoughts were like. Dorsal thoughts, we have a different lawyer. We're in the dorsal courtroom. Though that lawyer is just as good, but they talk really slow. And it's all about how it's too late and it's never going to happen for you. And regret lives here. Like it might be like, I've been married 40 years and I married the wrong person and it's too late. I chose the wrong career path and it's too late for me to make it different. I don't belong anywhere. And they're really powerful, but they're just slower. Freeze is like this. You go into the courtroom and imagine you had the sympathetic lawyer and the dorsal lawyer arguing back and forth, and you're listening to both. One is saying, you have to do this thing. You're like, yeah, you're totally right. And the other's like, no, don't do that. You should not do that. And you're like, oh, you're right. No, you should really do that. Oh, I should really do that. No, you shouldn't do that. And we're listening to both and we're like, what do I do? So the more you listen, the more dysregulated you get. Always 10 out of 10. So a simple example to give you a sense of this, what the different lawyers are saying, is a client who I many years ago got her permission to use. This is a woman who was married. She was in her 60s, was married for about 40 years. And when this was regarding her husband. So when her husband and her would get in a fight, if she went to dorsal, her dorsal lawyer would say to her, it's too late and you married the wrong person and you can't go back now. You'll never get your life back. You're almost 70 years old. And just feel into this. This isn't even my story. And as I say this, I'm like, oof, it's so heavy. Right. And her story was, because of your trauma, look at that. You married this person who's not right for you. And in this lifetime, it's not going to happen. And there's nothing you can do about it now. Oof, if that's not dorsal, I don't know what is. I mean, just saying that, I'm like, feel a heaviness.
Right.
Now, when she got in a fight and went to sympathetic, which is fight or flight, like I have to, this was her story. And what she was so just shocked by, because she wasn't aware of the stories happening. This woman who didn't swear in her daily life. So she was really surprised by this. So this woman, she realized, oh my gosh, when I'm in sympathetic, all I do is run around the house, throwing laundry baskets around, saying, fuck Frank, fuck that guy, and that guy, I hate that guy. That's her husband. And she's like, I don't even say that word in my regular life. Like, I can't believe that's what I've been saying to myself. And she's like, and he doesn't do anything. I do everything. And I raise the kids and I did all this stuff. And that guy's done nothing. And that guy sucks and blah, blah, blah. And so fuck Frank. And she was like appalled. She couldn't believe that when she was dysregulated, that's what the lawyer was saying to her. That's what the cognitive experience was. Now, when she was in freeze, it was all about, should I leave Frank or not? I should leave Frank. No, I can't, because how am I going to make it without him? But I really should leave him, but I can't. And then when she came into ventral, so regulation, here's what the regulated story, which is her truth. Here's what the regulated story was about Frank. I am so happy to be going through life with Frank. It's not always easy. It's really hard sometimes, but I love him and he's my family and he loves me. And I'm so glad we're doing this together. So look at that. That sounds like 4 different people, right? And the problem is that many of us hear the story. We don't even realize we're listening to it, but we take it as truth when we're in dysregulation. And then we make life choices that are based in dysregulation or self-protection instead of life choices based in what is actually my truth. And so it's so important to understand that's why I create maps with people. So we can look at it and say, there's that thought coming again. It's coming from this state of dysregulation. I'm not going to battle with the thought because it's going to win. Instead, I'm going to turn towards regulation. And when I do that, when I come into regulation, that's the time to ask yourself, what's actually true? What do I actually feel about this? But otherwise, if you listen to your thoughts, you can guarantee dysregulation. And a really simple tool is either getting a visual on those lawyers, or the second thing that I have folks do, and in tandem, is to, when you notice the thought, simply say to yourself, instead of saying something like, I don't belong here. I don't belong here. That's the thought, right? I don't belong here, which creates dysregulation. Yeah. Notice it and simply say, like, really visually see it. You can see it in a thought bubble, like away from you. You can see it as a visual of the lawyer, but very important, you see it as separate from you, and say to yourself, I'm noticing the thought that I don't belong. I'm noticing the thought that I don't belong. That simple tool that doesn't seem like much actually helps to lessen the activation around it. And then when you do that, then you turn towards, what can I do to get out of this dysregulation? Otherwise, if you listen to it, it will increase the dysregulation.
Yeah. Dr. Amen always, if you know him, the brain expert, he's always talking about, can you prove this to be ultimately true? A lot of these stories we tell ourselves, they're not true. You can't prove that they're true. They could come true, but ultimately they're not true. So that's all very helpful. Wow. Okay. That's all I have to say. But Sarah, I think we need to know how we get to your website and how we hire your coaches. Because I think I love the idea of getting a map to help us through this. I feel like this is a good first step, but I feel like, and these are good tasks to put into play right now, but I do feel like, working with someone like you, I think for the initial state to get you out of that, I know for me anyway, I feel like I need the map, and to work with someone on this, but this definitely helps me. But yeah, you have a website that has coaches available. Is that how it works?
Yeah. So you can go to sarahbaldwincoaching.com, and I have courses and programs. You can also, something that's important to me is providing free resources. So if you go to Sarah with an HB coaching on Instagram, I am constantly doing lots of free teachings, and you can also click on the link in my bio there to find out about my programs. I have one coming up in April called You Make Sense, and it's an 8-week program that's a holistic approach to healing. So we start with the foundation of, let's understand your nervous system, create a map of it, get in the driver's seat. And then after we do that throughout the 8 weeks, I support folks to say, okay, now that I'm in the driver's seat and I'm getting regulated, how does this relate to my relationships? How does this relate to my ability to change my thoughts, to set boundaries, to step towards my purpose more fully, to engage in shifting my relationships in a way that supports me? So that program begins in April, but there's lots of free resources on both pages too.
All right, very good. Well, Kelsey, I think we have a lot of work to do.
We have a lot of work to do.
And I can't wait for Maria to tune into this. What's that, hun?
No, I was just going to say, the last thing I was going to say is I love what you said about not making life choices and dysregulation, because when we all do it. Yeah. And we were connected through Mark Groves, and he talked about that on his episode with us too. And I just think that so many of us do. And
we all do.
Like, what a great way to
we all do. I think, for me, where it all comes out in reactions.
That's right.
So Kelsey might react with a freeze, but I'll react maybe aggressively, not physically, but aggressively in this thing, like where I'll overstate myself or say stupid things, or I'll make an idiot out of myself. And I know it's this is what's at play. And now I understand why there's different. There are these 3 things, but they manifest in ways that at least I didn't realize.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And regulation really helps us to make choices in life that are the choices we actually want versus self-protective choices.
Yeah, it's like I've been in this place, I know other people too, where you just can't help, but you need to, at certain times you just need to shut your mouth, right?
Yeah.
You say too much, you say something that's either offensive or you get yourself into trouble, you overstate your case, whatever. And when I've been there in those places, I feel like I can't help it.
Yeah.
But now I think I know why.
Yes, this is why.
This is why, yeah.
The beautiful thing is when we do this work, it's that I can know even before it happens. Like, because it's not just, it didn't just come up like that. Like I can notice that, oh, I'm starting to notice that energy in my body again. Oh, it's coming up. Hey, we need to stop this conversation. I need to go do something right now and to regulate. We might not say that, but let's come back and talk about this in 5 minutes. And that's what it means to live an empowered life. Like I'm in control of this system inside of me. It's no longer, because if we're not in control, it's like it shoves us in the back seat and goes on autopilot or cruise control. And then we say things, do things, and later we're like, oh, I can't believe I did that thing. It's your nervous system.
Yeah. So let's bring this to regular guy, regular gal speak. Mm-hmm. You get that text.
Yeah.
It pisses you the F off, right?
That's right.
And you want to respond right away.
Yes.
Because you're just dying to tell this person, to straighten things out, or, which of the tasks would you go to? Would you go to swing, humming? What do you, because obviously the reactionary text, the reactionary phone call, the reactionary email is not the right way to go.
Right. So that means we're in our fight, response, and sympathetic. So what I would remind you, what I like to do is create a list, like I jot down when I responded from that self-protected place, what happened? Because when we're in it, our system's like, no, I need to write them back and tell them because they need to see the truth. But if I created a list, like when I do this in each of these states, what occurs? Well, the fight becomes bigger. Like it's never good from dysregulation. So if I can look at that and be like, Sarah, remember when you respond from dysregulation, nothing good happens. So instead, put it down, pause. And then I would say, go do some controlled breathing. Or if you find there's or you can do humming, swaying, tapping, go for a walk, exercise, or something when a fight response comes up that can be really helpful is feel in your body where the anger is coming from. And then what I invite in is, when I'm working with folks, is I will say, if the anger could make a sound, what would that sound be? And allow that, usually it's coming from our gut. So I'll let that sound come out of our body. Or if that anger could squeeze this pillow, how would it squeeze that pillow? That's called discharging the energy, which is the same through all the other regulating tools. But what I'm trying to do is get rid of that activation in my body. And then when I feel more present in here, and only when I feel more present in here, I go back to the phone. That is so important. Or you're making a choice in work and you're like, I feel panicked. What's the right choice? I don't know. Well, I'm telling you, you actually don't know when you're in that panic. So go regulate and then you'll know what the right choice for you is. But if you don't, you're going to make the wrong choice.
Is it possible that you can, you get the nasty text and then you go through these steps and you get by it. But then I know for me, like a week later, I'm like, mother effers, send me that text. I need to give that person a piece of my mind, or I need to refute, or I need to step on whatever untruth they put out there about me.
Yeah.
So what do you, that must happen. I know it happens to me. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So it bubbles back up. So you just repeat the process?
So a part of this, one thing is setting somatic boundaries, which are different than verbal boundaries. So I walk people through a process of how we actually do that, which we, wouldn't have time to get into today, but that's a component of what we want to do. The second thing though is when I think about being regulated, I think about being, this came to me in my own healing, but I think about being like a great sequoia tree. If you've never been to the sequoia tree forest or seen like great big sequoia trees, they are so anchored. They are powerful. They are unwavering, but they're not loud. The sequoia tree would never, be like, oh, obviously they can't, but just following the analogy, metaphor, they would never say like yell or whatever. If I said, get out of my way, they would say, you'll have to go around me. This is my space. They're unwavering because they're so powerfully anchored. So if someone sent me a nasty text and I got in regulation and I know what the truth is, I see you to this person, I know what you're doing here. I know this is a scared, small little part of you. I am unwavering. You can try, you can do all these different song and dance around me, but I am unwavering. And if I'm that regulated and I respond back from that place, it doesn't matter what they say or do because I see them clearly in what they're trying to do and I have no room for it. And I can also call out the truth when I'm there from a place of unwavering anchoredness. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does. Or just change your number and mute them.
Oh, yeah.
Block them. No, but your way is the right way. My way is the runaway. That's kind of my thing. No, really, yeah. I've had, and I'm recently coming into this myself. I'll have friends from home, let's say, and there's just a couple people that, they're very, I don't know if this has happened to you, Sarah, coming out to LA, kind of living your dream. Yeah. People where we came from, that pushes a lot of buttons.
That's right.
In them, their insecurities about, where they fell short.
That's right.
And so rather than deal with that in a healthy way, they poke at you. And so my way of dealing with it is like, okay, well, I'm just not going to be around these people anymore. Yes. But now decades later, I'm like, well, it's also deprived me of being around other people that I really do like. Mm-hmm. And I want to just kind of learn how to be around those people and now see them for like, wow, they must be in a lot of pain to be in that place. So I think the cutting them off, the muting, I've done all that. And I think I always say to people, if you really can't handle it, do that.
Yes.
But I think that it's also for me, if I keep going, I'm going to be living far up in Maine, completely alone. You know what I mean? Like at some point I have to, yeah. So these are great ways to kind of cope with this, I think, in the healthier way. So very, very helpful. And hopefully a great way to end this amazing interview, Sarah. Thank you so much. I definitely want to have you back with Maria. I think you guys will have another great conversation, and that's very productive. Yeah, I'm excited to go deeper into this. I really am. And I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was just really a joy to talk to you. So thank you for having me here today.
Okay, Kev, after hearing all that, what state do you think you're most in?
What's the state where, again, you just get so revved up that you react, you don't respond?
Sympathetic? Or no, not. Yeah, sympathetic.
That's kind of, yeah.
Really?
I get a little tongue tied, and then I just know it. I start to shake, and I just get really upset, and I know the past traumas that are being triggered for me to get like that. And I most of the time feel pretty awful afterwards. And listen, sometimes it's been necessary because there was no other way to get my point across. And like, it's funny, just recently dealing with someone who was in a life and death crisis, and I was at the hospital with them, and I wasn't being heard. And I knew better because I knew the person and I knew the medications and all this stuff. And finally, I just had to get, I had to really rev up. But it wasn't by theatrics. It was like I was just that upset where I was like, just God fucking listen to me. Like this is no joke. And, I hate it, but it worked. But at the same time, it wasn't my best self. And I think that's my nervous system when I feel I'm not being heard, or I'm afraid that I know I can see something bad is going to happen and no one else is seeing it, or I'm not being listened to. I won't stay calm. I'll really react. You've seen me, Kelsey, with me in meetings when I'll say, hey, this is why we should try this new process. Here's the data I have showing why this process works. Let's try this new process. And the person will go, yeah. Anyway, like I was saying, and they'll totally change the subject or talk about their initiatives. Now, these are people who are working for me that I'm paying. Rather than just stay calm and say, okay, can we back up because I just said something to you and you totally changed the subject. What are we going to do to keep? I rev up and get really upset, you know, and I think that's one of the ways that my nervous system starts to well, she wouldn't say malfunction, but is working to protect me because I'm perceiving, you know, this to be, you know, far worse of a threat than it is. Yeah. Then I just need to be the big tree, the sequoia tree. And by the way, the greats I've seen stay like that. They stay calm and even keeled. And they're like, okay, now we're going to do, great. Okay. So, you know, so who on this squad is going to actually help me, you know, enact this, this new process I want to put into place if you're not going to. And even that's maybe too much of an insult. I don't know, but that's where I see it coming up with me. And again, I think like we said, you know, before it's you know, finding the time to put this in place. But I'll tell you, I think you always have time for every hour to go out and get away from your computer for just 2 to 5 minutes. Go out and breathe. I mean, get some sun, get some fresh air, or take a walk around the building if you don't. I think no matter how hard your job is or how much is expected of you, I think you can do that. Yeah,
I think so too.
That I think you can do.
Yeah. I don't know why the breathing. I'm like, I'm not going to do the breathing, but that to me is less daunting. I'm like, I could go outside and breathe.
Well, I think because our ADD gets triggered with the breathing, because that's work.
Yeah, it is.
And focus. Whereas like a walk is like, do.
Right. And sunshine. Like I want that.
Oh, I like that. Sun feels good to me. And you know what? I think in those moments, then that's fine. I think. But I think at the surface, these are all fantastic coping mechanisms that over time will make you healthier. But I do think with deeper training, there's probably a way to reprogram the nervous system that's more in depth and probably has a map, or you're working with somebody in somatic therapy that can do it. You know, I don't know. So I'm definitely, I see this as viable. It makes sense to me. And I think it's just a matter of, again, like the time to put it into practice.
Yeah.
You know, but I can do the little things for sure. And I can be aware now if I'm starting to react in a way, and I know it's my nervous system going at work. I like doing some of these different things. And some of them I notice myself doing vibrational hums, like they're moans, but I know it's basically that. I'm trying to get something out of my body.
Interesting.
That's not right. So anyway, all right. Yeah. Well, Kelsey, hopefully this was helpful to y'all, and
definitely.
And let us know in the comments, and certainly give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts if you would be so kind. And I don't know, Kelsey, how do you guys get out of this? What is it that you say?
We say to be nice people, make good choices, and be present.
Well, what else is there to say?
What else?
Soft smile, peace signs. Yeah, you had a softer smile than me. All right, you guys. We'll see you on Friday.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or mariamenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.